Wait, what? When I returned to the shadow stop after shopping at the store, my mother-in-law was nowhere to be found. I checked the timetable and found that the last shadow had left 5 minutes ago. As I was in despair, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Judith, the shadow. Too bad for you. You're so inconsiderate to come along on our family trip in the first place. A stranger like you should walk 4 hours to the hotel. Understood? I don't know why I couldn't fight back. I was just so shocked by the fact she hated me so much. My husband and father-in-law were supposed to join us separately. Now that the last shadow had left, I had no choice but to hike for 4 hours along the mountain road to the hotel. I was at a loss when a phone call gave me a glimpse of light. My name is Sandra. I'm 30 years old. I work at a variety shop in a shopping mall. My husband Calvin and I have been married for almost a year. Since we had dated for 3 years and had lived together for 1 year before our marriage, it has been an ordinary couple's life with no major changes. My work has been going well, and I've been promoted to manager since the beginning of this year. The number of regular customers has increased, and some of them even come to the store specifically to chat with me. From the outside, one might say that my life is smooth sailing. However, I have one headache. It's the relationship with my mother-in-law Judith. She's been horrible from the first time I met her. When I visited my in-laws upon our engagement, she looked at me and said, "You can't be the fiancé, are you kidding me?" Her outrageous comment left my father-in-law and Kevin with their mouths hanging open. They were so shocked that their minds went totally blank. Kevin, who had come to his senses, hastily spoke up to her. "Mom, what the heck is wrong with you?" "Oh, no, sweetheart. I didn't mean anything bad. It's just that I had expected you to choose a prettier and classier girl." "Why are you being so rude? Sandra is the most wonderful woman to me." "But, if it was up to me, I'd have picked someone more suitable for you." "That's enough. I don't want to hear about it anymore. If you keep insulting her, I'll never speak to you again." His statement made her instantly turn pale. She seemed to never have thought that he was going to defend me that much. She frantically apologized to him. "I'm sorry, Calvin. I don't mean to hurt you. I just want you to be happy." "My happiness is my decision. You don't get to decide what makes me happy." "It's my bad. Don't be so mad at me. I didn't mean to upset you." "Then promise me you'll never say anything bad about Sandra ever again." "Of course, I promise I won't." She clearly agreed in front of all of us on that day. That was why I decided to let it go and move on. I hoped that we will be able to build a good relationship in the future. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Her promise was only to smooth things out with Kevin at the time. One day, about 2 months after our marriage, I suddenly received a call from her. Kevin and I didn't have a wedding, so I hadn't seen or spoken to her since that day. I hoped she wouldn't say anything strange again, and anxiously answered the phone. "Yes, hello?" Immediately she let out a loud sigh and accused me of something. "Sandra, I hear you've been carried away." "Excuse me?" "Kevin told me you're forcing him to do the housework for whatever reason." "I don't mean to impose on him." "Maybe not. He also defended you and said You both work, so you share the housework. But you know what? Housework is supposed to be a woman's responsibility. I stifled the urge to ask her which ear she was stuck in and just went along with her. Taking advantage of the fact that I didn't talk back, she threw harsh words at me one after another. He's a sweet guy, so he accepts whatever is thrown at him without saying a word. If you take advantage of him, he will surely grow tired of you someday. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. I think only he understands how he feels. How dare you? I'm his mother. Of course I know him better than anyone else. But he's never said anything like that to me. Shut up. Don't you ever talk over me. That's why people with lousy upbringing are. The memory of the day I met her came back to me, and my blood rushed to my head with great force. I barely restrained myself and continued talking calmly. Well, with all due respect, you promised that you would never say anything bad to me again, didn't you? I didn't say anything bad. I'm just saying what I think. I'm hurt enough. If you just want to make an insulting call, could you please refrain from doing so? Oh dear, that's why I didn't want him to marry a disobedient girl. She was satisfied with what she had said and hung up the phone before I could say anything back. The sound of the disconnected tone echoing in my ears increased my irritation. What the heck just happened? Did she take her time just to insult me? I couldn't get over it. I was adamant to report it to Calvin when he got home. When he did that evening, I immediately brought up the matter. He looked surprised and apologetic. Seriously, I'm sorry after all the warning I gave her. Not your fault. I can't talk back to her too. You have the right to. I'll call her now. Thanks. He took out his phone and called her right away. He was talking harshly the whole time, and I could hear Judith sobbing on the other end. After about 10 minutes of talking, he ended the call looking puzzled. I'm confused. My mom kept insisting that she didn't mean any harm. She didn't, huh? Just like the last time? I mentioned to her a while ago that I was doing the housework. Apparently that prickled her nerves. That's what she said to me too, but don't worry. I cleared up the misunderstanding once again. I told her that it is our intention to share the chores and that you are not forcing me to do it. She said she understood. I hope so. What concerned me was her excuse that she had no bad intentions. It bothered me a lot. After that, she stopped calling me, and we only occasionally visited my in-laws. Although she didn't blatantly pick on me, she tried to intimidate me by giving me a cold shoulder, bumping into me on purpose and so on. Even after a year of marriage, her attitude was still as cold as ever, but I had gotten used to it and stopped caring about her so much. Then one day, to my surprise, my in-laws invited us on a trip. Apparently, my father-in-law Dan had always wanted to go on a family vacation, but because of the relationship between Judith and me, he wasn't able to suggest it before. Since I had been paying much less attention to her, he interpreted it as a sign that we had been on the mend. He suggested that 4 of us go on a trip to a lakeside. Of course, Calvin readily agreed, but asked what I wanted to do. I had no reason to decline the invitation. I didn't know what Judith thought about it, but I thought it might have been a good opportunity for us to get to know each other better. With such positive thinking, I gladly accepted the invitation. 1 month later, on the day of the trip, we had to take a mountain road to the destination. At the foot of the mountain, there were many sightseeing spots which I was looking forward to visiting. Calvin and Dan, on the other hand, decided to go hiking in the mountains. Since Judith and I weren't so fit, we inevitably decided to go separately. Calvin asked me if I would be okay, but I didn't suspect she would do anything to me during the trip. I assured him that I would be okay, and we parted with a smile. As I thought, Judith never harassed me after we became alone. Sandra, look at this glasswork. Isn't it so beautiful? These pastries look delicious. Let's buy some for later. I read that this variety store is famous. Since you work in the same field, you must be interested. As if our previous relationship had been a lie, she was very proactive in interacting with me. I was so pleased with her that I had a smile the whole time. To be honest, I wasn't keen on being alone with her, but it turned out to be great, and I was moved. I let my guard down without knowing what awaited me later. It was almost dusk when we finished sightseeing. We were going to make the last shadow that Judith had checked in advance. When we arrived at the shadow stop, Judith looked at her watch and muttered we still had 10 minutes. It would take almost an hour to get to the cabin going up the mountain road. I was thankful for the shuttle service. Calvin and Dan were going directly by car. While Judith and I waited for the shuttle to arrive, she apologetically asked, "Sorry to ask, Sandra, but can you go buy me a drink? I'm a little thirsty." "Sure, what would you like?" "I would like a tea, not too sweet. I'd also like some snacks." "Okay, I'll be back." I took my wallet and my phone and headed for the convenience store a short distance away. 10 minutes would have been enough time. I picked out some snacks that I thought she would have liked and paid the bill. But then when I returned to the bus stop, she was gone. Wait, what? I hurriedly checked the timetable and found that the last shuttle had left 5 minutes ago. As I was in despair, I received a call from her. "Judith, the shuttle." Her high-pitched laughter cut me off. I was bewildered, not knowing what was going on, as she triumphantly said, "Too bad for you. You're so inconsiderate to come along on our family trip in the first place." "Inconsiderate? Why did you lie about the time?" "Because you've been acting up and annoying me. You're just a stranger to me. Is that what you think of me? A stranger like you should walk 4 hours to the cabin. Understood?" I don't know why I couldn't fight back. I was just so shocked by the fact that she hated me so much. At that moment, I felt sadness and an inexpressible anger welled up inside me. How dare she? What did I do to deserve this? Fine, I'll make it to the cabin by foot. I started to walk along the mountain path with determination. As I mentioned earlier, I wasn't so fit. I'm not good at running, let alone hiking. It was extremely difficult to walk uphill for 4 hours. About an hour into the walk, my knees started to buckle. Just when I was about to give up, I received a call from Calvin. "Hey, hon, Dad and I finished hiking early. If you haven't arrived at the cabin yet, we'll pick you up. Or are you already there?" I tried calling Mom, but she didn't pick up. I left her a message. Help me. Honey? Help me, please come and get me. I found myself in tears and screaming. The sun had already set, and there was only the mountain road ahead of me. My mental state had already reached its limit. I told him that Judith had left me at the shadow stop and that I was on my way on foot alone. He said he was coming right away and hung up. My phone rang again right after, and it was from Judith. I dared not answer it, but it rang incessantly. She must have read the message from Calvin that he was picking me up and called me in a hurry. She must have freaked out. I kept ignoring her calls and waited for Calvin to pick me up. Half an hour later, I was inside a car with him and Dan. I was so relieved and tears started rolling down again. Dan was already informed of what had happened and apologized to me with a bothered look. I'm so sorry, Sandra. Judith has gone way over the line. It's okay now. Thank you so much for picking me up. You must have been scared alone in the dark. Here, take this. He handed me a cup of hot tea. Thank you. It filled me with warmth. The sadness I had felt earlier was gone, and only anger toward Judith remained. When we arrived at the cabin, she came running up to me, clutching her phone. Oh, Sandra, thank God you're okay. You're safe. What? I didn't think you'd miss the bus. I went ahead, but I was going to ask Calvin to pick you up. Apparently, she wanted to treat the incident as an accident, not intentional. I missed the bus by chance. That was what she was going for. Unfortunately for her, I had already told the others everything. She told me a false time and made me go to the store at the right moment. That alone was enough to convey malice. Calvin and Dan headed straight for the main building without getting their luggage out. Where are you guys going? When Judith asked, Dan replied coldly, We are leaving. I'll pay for this place, so don't you ever return to my house. Wait, stop him, Calvin. Calvin glared at her, who trembled with fear. We know you did it on purpose. I trusted you, but it was all a lie, wasn't it? Sweetheart, that's not true. It's all a misunderstanding. What did I misunderstand? You lied about the time and left Sandra behind. That's what you did, right? Always pretending it wasn't your fault. It was always you. I'm deeply disappointed. Oh, Calvin, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. I have no intention of forgiving you anyway. The father and son turned their backs to her and walked away. Then she grabbed my arm with a pleading look. She was probably trying to get me to forgive her and get on the good side with them. I shook off her hand and said firmly, Please don't touch me. I don't have the slightest intention of forgiving you. But why? I'm genuinely trying to apologize. Do you really think your apology is credible now? I will never forget what you have done to me, and I will never forgive you. I will never think of you as mother-in-law. Please never try to get in touch with me. Goodbye now. Wait a minute, Sandra. Hey. I went to join the others, leaving her sobbing. Afterward, I heard she tried to follow us home, but it was already dark and she gave up the idea. When she returned first thing in the morning, Dan had already packed her belongings and declared divorce to her. She contacted Calvin to apologize, but of course he refused. He has no intention of seeing her again. She has been cut off from her family, who have been together for many years. I wonder how she will live on her own from now on. She will probably have to face the harsh reality, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. That day, she had already ceased to exist in my mind. I can only thank Calvin and Dan for believing my words and helping me. From now on, I am going to build an even better relationship with my real, trustworthy family. My husband, who asked me to be a housewife, goes berserk at me for being exactly a housewife. And my mother-in-law keeps pace with him and criticizes me every day. If you are there to show the slightest rebellion, if you can't obey us, get the heck out. At last, I'm left in the middle of nowhere in the dark with nothing but my clothes on. I might not make it. Just when I lose hope, a knight on a white horse appears in front of me. I'm Amelia, a 30-something housewife. I'm now a full-time homemaker, but I used to have a career. My husband Mark and I both worked and shared the chores for a little while after we got married. I decided that I'm not doing any housework from now on. I want you to stay at home and take care of the house. I'll earn enough for us. I resigned from my job at his request. He had never lived alone, so he was not used to doing laundry, cleaning, and cooking. It took him a long time to do those things. Since no one can do everything perfectly from the beginning, I thought he would get used to them slowly. On the contrary, he had given up at once. Although I was anxious about quitting my job, I thought if we had a child, I wouldn't be able to continue working as before. I told myself that the occasion arrived a bit sooner than expected and agreed with Mark. I come home and dinner's ready. It's so nice to come back to a tidy house. In the beginning, he was very appreciative. I was motivated by his happiness and did my best to keep a nice home for him. As time went on, whenever I sat down to take a little break, "Hey, stop slacking off and get to your chores. You haven't finished the dishes yet, have you? The living room is still a mess." He scolded me about cleaning and heating up frozen food isn't cooking. Don't just think about how to be lazy. He started complaining about every single thing. Housewives are so relaxed, aren't they? You take a nap during the day, don't you? Meanwhile, I'm working my butt off. I gotta work tomorrow again. What a pain in the butt. He whined day after day, which got on my nerves. Then I'll quit being a housewife and go back to work. Let's share the chores like before. I proposed to him. I'll never do housework. How dare you talk back to the master of this house? Who do you think is supporting your life? He questioned me illogically. I knew that working could be tough. Just getting to the office every day on the commuter train was hard work. However, being a housewife wasn't easy either. He promised to make more money, so I thought that being married had motivated him. To be honest, nothing had changed. The only difference was the increase in complaints when dinner was too simple or the house was a little messy. It's not a good idea to trust a housewife with the family finances. He even kept all the bank accounts and cash under his control. He complained to me every day, called me incompetent, and told me to obey him. As my life continued, I started to believe that he cared so much about me that he was trying to teach me to be better. He was playing the villain because I couldn't do the housework perfectly. It was all my fault. My thought process became distorted. Looking back, I was completely brainwashed. At that time, I was living in a tiny world, isolated from the outside, and Mark was everything to me. Then one day, I bought an apartment. We are moving next month. As soon as Mark came home from work, he dropped a bombshell. Excuse me? You bought an apartment without consulting me? Why would I do that? I'm the head of the household, and I'm the one who got the loan. Basically, you're living in my house for free. While I struggled to understand the situation, he continued, My mom will be moving in with us. I was blown away by the nuclear explosion. I could not stand my mother-in-law Beth. She lived far away, so I saw her only a couple of times a year. In those short visits, she tormented me with a 4 years' worth of harassment. Whenever we were alone, she even spoke to me in a way that degraded me. I loathed her. Mark told me before we got married, my mom has a harsh tongue. She must be lonely since my dad passed away and doesn't have any bad intentions. You don't have to see her so often. I'm sorry to put you through this. Even after we get married, you don't have to deal with her any more than now. We'll never have to live with her, but I only ask you to visit her with me occasionally. That was why I had been putting up with her for a while. Wait a minute, didn't you say we'll never have to live with her? I protested, but he was having none of it. Circumstances have changed, so just do as I say. He became furious. I never wished to be a housewife. I became one because he asked me to. I wanted to remind him, but when he raised his voice at me, my body stiffened and I couldn't say anything. Although it was a fact that I became a housewife at his request, I was being supported financially by him. When I thought of that, I couldn't argue with him. I wondered where the sweet guy I had married had gone. The moving day arrived, and I moved to a new apartment unconvincingly. It was a brand new building close to the train station. Beth had already been waiting there. As soon as she saw me, "Oh, Amelia, you're still as gloomy as ever. You're ruining the new apartment." She greeted me with her typical sarcasm. Mark didn't even intervene, but just said, "We're going out for lunch, so you'd better get to unpacking. And you're not allowed to turn on the heater until we come back." They left me with piles of boxes. I shivered in the cold as I frantically unpacked them. Obviously, I couldn't finish within an hour or two while they were out. They saw that the apartment was almost the same as when they left. "You really are useless, aren't you?" It's so frustrating that I have to live with such a clumsy person from now on. They laughed, making fun of me. After that, my life was hell. Beth always criticized everything I did. When I cleaned the room, "You sweep a square room round and round. The corners still got full of dust. That's what happens when you don't pay attention." She then deliberately vacuumed the room again. When I cooked a meal, "Your food is disgusting. I feel sorry for my son who's been forced to eat it. I'll make it again." She threw the food in a bin. When Mark came home, She reported a million lies about me neglecting the housework, how much she'd been struggling, and so on. Amelia threw all her responsibilities to me and did nothing again. Not only that, she complained about my cooking and yelled at me. I was frightened. She acted like a tragic heroine. Her eyes were moist and she sounded like she was about to cry. Mark believed her lies and got enraged. What have you done to my mom? He threw the remote control, which hit the wall and made a dent. I don't remember saying such a thing to her. It's her who complained about my cooking. I retorted desperately. I was shaking, but I could not remain silent. Liar, she's lying. Beth tearfully pleaded. I know, Mom. He rubbed her back and glared at me. You made her cry. Who do you think is supporting you to be a housewife? I had enough. He grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the apartment. I was wearing my sandals and almost fell being pulled by him. Then he ordered me to get in the car and forced me into the passenger seat. There was Beth with a giddy look in the back seat. He started the car. I asked him where we were headed, which was ignored. We drove through the center and got farther and farther away from the town. We drove for about an hour and came to the densely wooded area in the dark. Suddenly, the car stopped. Get out. What? I couldn't understand what he meant. I'm telling you to get out of the car. Why here? Shut up. If you can't obey us, get lost. Don't come back to us. Don't tell me you're going to leave me in the middle of nowhere at this hour. I desperately grabbed the seatbelt, but he forcefully threw me out of the car. Wait! Don't leave me here. I shouted desperately while they watched me from inside the car with smirks. Then they drove off. I ran after the car frantically, but it was out of sight in no time. It was a pitch-dark dirt road lined by dense forest on either side without street lights, lit only by moonlight. I didn't have my phone with me, so I wanted to get to where there were people quickly. I rushed in the direction I just came from. It was hard to walk with my sandals, which kept slipping off my feet, causing me to trip. It was freezing too. I kept walking, but after several trips and falls, I finally stopped moving. My teeth chattered and my limbs lost sensation. As I sat there at a loss, I saw the lights of a car in the distance. The driver noticed me sitting by the side of the road. The car stopped and a man came out. Are you okay? Oh my God, look at you. When I looked at myself, my hands and knees were covered in blood. I was suddenly dragged out of the apartment and was wearing sandals and an apron. I explained the situation to him, involuntarily weeping with relief at seeing another person. He covered me with his suit jacket. I'll take you home. Wait, I think you need to go to the hospital first. The complete stranger offered to drive me. Normally, I would be wary of getting into a stranger's car, but I felt like he was sent by God. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. I felt sorry for the man, but I asked him to drive me to my parents in the next town. My parents were shocked to see me suddenly show up in such a state. When I told them what had happened, they cried and asked why I had not come back sooner. They repeatedly promised the man that they would thank him properly at a later date. I was drained of energy and strength. and could not bring myself to contact Mark. I just let myself be taken care of by my parents after that. My dad found a lawyer for the divorce for me and helped me with other things. I was very grateful. Just as I was thinking that I couldn't keep living under my parents' roof, Mark and Beth showed up. "Amelia, are you there? Come out. I got a call from your lawyer. I will never allow you to get a divorce." I heard Mark yelling from outside. I tried to hide, but he kicked the front door and rattled the doorknob with all his might. My dad offered to go out, but I knew I had to do what I had to do. I asked him to call the police if anything and open the front door. As soon as they saw me, "Why didn't you come out sooner instead of keeping us waiting? Apologize and I'll forgive you." "Yes, apologize at once and come back home. Just listen to us from now on." They spat out illogical demands. They made absolutely no sense to me. Why did I need to apologize? I finally woke up from Mark's brainwashing and got a grip on my own life. I wasn't going to let them control me. Why would I apologize to you guys? You told me not to come back and dumped me like a piece of trash in the middle of nowhere. I'm doing exactly what you wanted me to do. Please leave. They probably didn't expect me to talk back and were taken aback by this defiant attitude. Moments later, their faces quickly turned bright red and they began yelling at me. "Who do you think you're speaking to? I'm your husband." "That's right. You're being supported by him. You should know your place." The two of them started having fits, and it was pointless to argue with illogical people. Just as I was thinking about what to do, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. "What are you all yelling about?" Ryan, the man who had rescued me the other day, was standing behind me. He was invited to a thank you dinner at my house. "Don't disturb the neighbors." He came out to the porch. "Mark, what are you doing here?" I was surprised that he knew my husband, who was even more surprised than I was. "Why are you here?" He stared at Ryan with wide eyes. "Wait, he's from your office, isn't he? He's your boss." Beth looked at him with disbelief. I was wondering what jerk could leave a woman behind the middle of nowhere at night, but it was you." He looked at Mark knowingly. "That was just a joke, you know. That was in no way a joke." His scolding silenced both of them. They were arrogant to those who were in a weaker position, but weak to those who were stronger. If he was his boss, they would be even more vulnerable. If there was a wrong person or no one passed by, her life was in danger. What were you thinking leaving her there in the dark? Well, she was giving us hard times, so it was more of a discipline or an expression of love. He was dripping sweat down his forehead and was struggling to make excuses. Ryan stared at him in disgust and sighed loudly. "I see, that's enough." When he said that, Mark and Beth seemed to be relieved and gathered themselves to leave. Well then, as they turned away, he coldly put a nail in the coffin. "Your attitude at work has been unacceptable. In addition to that, this incident has happened. We can't have someone like you in our company." "What do you mean?" "You don't have to come to work anymore." Mark's cheek twitched as he yelled, "This is BS. I thought it was strange that my boss was at your house. You've been cheating on me with him, haven't you? You two are in on this together." "Must be. Sneaking around to meet up is called cheating. You owe us alimony." My blood boiled up when I heard them forcefully accusing Ryan. Enough. Who in the right mind brings a cheating partner to the parents' house? You guys are disturbing the peace in my neighborhood. Get lost. I shouted with a grimace I had never shown before, which worked on them. They spat out, "Don't you forget this," and left. I didn't need to be told that. I wasn't going to forget the way they abused me, and the distorted grins they looked down at me with. I was going to remember it all for sure. "Wow, what a rumbling voice. You did it." He cracked up, clapping his hands. I smiled shyly with a mixture of embarrassment and happiness, an indescribable emotion. We have kept in touch since then. Mark never had to report to work and left the company voluntarily without giving notice. His professional field is relatively small. Rumors quickly spread that he's the kind of guy who abandons his wife in the middle of nowhere, and he's struggling to find a new job. He bought a new apartment to live in with his mom, but he was behind in his loan repayments and had to put it on the market. They are now living in a downgraded apartment together. I guess it was impossible for me to enter into their lives as a daughter-in-law, as they seem to trust only themselves. I'm in the process to get divorced now and living alone near my parents. Today, Ryan is coming over for the first time. I don't know what he saw in me, but he asked me out sincerely. I was attracted to him and decided to take a chance. While I'm cooking his requested beef stew, I'm excited looking forward to having him over.